To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body. But as president, I must put the interests of America first. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
40 years ago, Richard Milhous Nixon announced his early departure from the White House, a step taken by no other president before or since. The cause, of course, was Watergate, a bungled robbery followed by a bungled cover-up that stretched all the way to the president's desk. Today, Watergate remains our benchmark for all political crookedness. But there's another, less acknowledged part of the Nixon legacy that also shapes politics 4 decades later. His resignation speech, mere background at the time, has become the template for a now familiar form of political performance, the televised non-apology. It sounds like an apology. It may even include the word regret or sorry. But as the linguist Edwin Battistella notes in a new book on the subject, many political mea culpas are too evasive, too vague, and ultimately too self-congratulatory to be true apologies.
I'm sorry that's the case, because that's not the way I feel.
I am sorry that they are finding themselves in this situation.
I'll never apologize for the United States of America. Ever. I don't care what the facts are.
I have done things that were not right, which I thought then was playful, but now I recognize that I have offended people.
I did nothing wrong, and I regret the decision to plead guilty and the sadness that decision has brought.
Nixon's resignation was all these things, and more. He addressed the nation for nearly 20 minutes, but only 24 seconds of his speech was at all sorrowful.
I regret deeply any injuries that may have been done in the course of the events that led to this decision. I would say only that if some of my judgments were wrong, and some were wrong, they were made in what I believed at the time to be the best interest of the nation.
Did you catch that? Nixon offers deep regret, but he gives no explanation for that regret. He mentions poor judgment, but about what, he never says. And he mentions injuries, but provides no details. Instead, the trauma of Watergate becomes the course of events, and Nixon's own role becomes that of a passionate bystander whose only crime was that he cared too much. You can hear the same notes, the same conditionals, indefinites, and passive voice in dozens of political apologies. There's President Reagan's response to the Iran-Contra scandal.
A few months ago, I told the American people I did not trade arms for hostages. My heart and my best intentions still tell me that's true, but the facts and the evidence tell me it is not.
Or President Bill Clinton's non-apology for the Lewinsky affair.
I know that my public comments and my silence about this matter gave a false impression. I misled people, including even my wife. I deeply regret that.
We rarely think of Nixon as a master communicator, let alone a man whose artful dodge has been emulated. He's the awkward guy, the one who lost to a more camera-ready John F. Kennedy, the one who delivered the kind of lines that would melt a modern cable news microphone. But Nixon mastered television in his own way. In 1952, he delivered America's first nationally televised address, using 30 minutes of prime time to rebut charges of an illegal slush fund. It's remembered as one of the most effective speeches of all time, the perfect blend of witty and serious.
Let me say, incidentally, that some of you may say, well, that's all right, Senator. That's your explanation. But have you got any proof?
His resignation, by contrast, has never been held up in the same company, but it worked just as well. He never did apologize for Watergate, and where he might have explained himself, he instead touted his record. Nixon believed that history would vindicate him. And you know what? He was at least partially right. When he died in 1994, his public approvals were up, the public bile was down, and President Clinton delivered the eulogy, one Nixon could have written himself.
He gave of himself with intelligence and energy and devotion to duty, and his entire country owes him a debt of gratitude.
His country's politicians do too.